Well, away we go. Another edition of Extra Time. Your questions hot off the press, and 3 willing recipients of those questions. There they are. Look at them. Gab in the middle. We got Shaka and Frank flanking him either side. And I think, gents, Craig Burley provided the inspiration for this first question from Jordan, who's dug into the Manchester United stats. Remember Craig focusing on their 66 points? Well, Jordan says Frank mentioned United should be focusing more on filling the gaps in defence than making the attack stronger. They conceded 36 goals this year, Frank, only 3 more than the top 2, but they scored 66, while the top 2 scored 85 and 102. Doesn't buying a right winger or a striker make more sense, says Jordan. Frank?
Oh, you want me to answer about that?
Yes.
About what I already said? I talked about it yesterday. I think, yes, to get Sancho, Jadon Sancho is a very good idea. But I think it's still the same problem for many clubs. Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea, Barcelona, Paris Saint-Germain, where you want to buy strikers, you want to buy forward players, because I think it's going to be more attractive to anybody. It's going to please the media, the fans, everything. But when you want to build something, when you want to have results, you buy a central defender nowadays. When you have Sergio Ramos, you win the Liga. When you have Van Dijk, you win the Premier League. I can go when you have Marquinhos in Paris Saint-Germain, you win the Ligue 1. And I think it goes with other defenders like that. But it seems to be that the tendency is to buy players, very expensive players forward, and forget the essential. The essential has always been like that, and Gabriel Marcotti can tell us about that. In Italy, you know that if you defend well, you have a chance to win the Serie A. If you don't have a good defense, you're not gonna get anything.
But Gab, the stats suggest their defence was actually pretty good this year.
Well, I mean, it's not a binary thing. It's not like, oh, we want to score more goals, so let's just buy more attacking players. You know, you can only play with 11 players out there. And frankly, in the modern game, and this is, I think, one of the issues with United and why they're looking to strengthen, this season they didn't concede a lot of goals, but equally, they didn't get much attacking impetus from their fullbacks, whether it was Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Brandon Williams or Luke Shaw. That's an issue. Fullback, it's 2020. Fullback is an attacking position when you're in possession. Equally, when you talk about your wingers and your front three, your wide forwards, those guys, when you're not in possession, will often have to press, and they're going to have to defend high up the pitch. They're going to have to move. So it's not that simple. I mean, for me, I look at the front three, and I think Rashford's very young, Greenwood's very young. These guys are going to improve and move up an upward trajectory. I don't know how much Lindelof is going to improve. I'm pretty sure Maguire at his age, a good player, but I don't know that he's going to improve much. I don't think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is going to suddenly, turn into Dani Alves. And so, yeah, you could look at it and say, we want to improve at the back also because it makes us better going forward. And often, don't forget, what happens when you have bad defenders, especially bad individual defenders or ones who aren't that good, as a team, you become more conservative, you defend deeper as an 11, and you might end up conceding fewer goals to compensate, but then that takes away your attacking potential. So these things are all interrelated.
Talking of improving at the back, Shaka, next question, Steffi B. Looking back at the performance of goalkeepers this past English Premier League season, would you say their standard dropped or the standard of the attacking improved?
If we're using this current crop of goalkeepers compared to themselves last year, I think the standard has dropped. Alisson continues to be as consistent as ever. I don't think Edison had the season this time around that he did last year or the year before that. We've spoken ad nauseum about David De Gea and his continued decline. Kepa is a story, again, we've discussed a lot over recent weeks. So just looking at the top 4, you would have to say it's declined. And I know there are other instances in there, be it Pope, Henderson, Schmeichel continues to be consistent, but largely top end of the table. I think that standard has dropped. If I'm comparing this current crop of goalkeepers to, say, goalkeepers of 10 years ago, it's a different game. The way goalkeepers have to play out from the back, how comfortable they have to be with the ball at their feet and distribution. It's a totally different game. This current crop are better suited to today's game than they were 10 years ago, and you could probably say vice versa as well.
Frank, this edition
Well,
of
if I can add something, Adrian.
Yeah, go on.
I'm sorry, but I think if the goalkeepers, the level of the goalkeeper has declined, is also because, and we were talking about that just before with Gabi, is the level of the defense. The defenses has declined as well, and that goes with the goalkeeper. If the goalkeeper is not protected by the defenders, well, at some point he's gonna fail. So it's not only the goalkeeper's fault if he concedes goals. It's also the defense. It's also a defensive problem.
This is definitely your sort of extra time, Frank. A lot of these questions about strengthening the defence. Shamik.
Good.
Shamik, Frank, do you think the premium Premier League clubs pay for English defenders is worth it? Say, for example, the two left-backs that Chelsea are looking at, Sergio Reguilon of Real Madrid, £20 million, Ben Chilwell, more like £80 million. Same age, both talented. Is the difference worth it, I guess?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Do I think the Premier League clubs pay for England? Oh.
Why?
No, it's always been a problem. It's always been a problem, and we see that from outside the country when you see English club paying a lot for English players. But it's always been like that. When we see Maguire being paid like crazy, but we saw in some decades ago same things about other players in different positions. So. It's always been like that in England. I don't know why, and I can't really explain why. I think nobody worth like 80 million, nobody worth like 50 million, nobody worth like 20 millions. But it's the offer and the demands, and I think the players that you name and the amount of money that is being asked for them is just normal for a defender, and it shouldn't be more than that comparing to strikers, I think.
Gab,
Adrian, can I just interject here? Let me just say, I was speaking to a former Premier League manager some years ago, and this is a totally off the record conversation, so I won't say who it was. But he made a point to me in saying that you pay a premium for English players because if an English player takes a step up and doesn't make it, if say they move from let's say they move from West Ham to Manchester United and they don't make it at Manchester United, the fault falls on the player for not being able to handle that step up in class, or whether it's moving from the Championship to the Premier League or whatever it may be. With foreign players, if that player doesn't adapt to his new team and the new league, new level, the fault falls on the manager. So you find managers more willing to pay that premium because it sheds them of some responsibility of the success, or to this point, failure of that player.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting perspective that I'd never considered myself as a player.
Yeah. Gab, is it particular to English football, do you think?
I think to some degree there's always a small premium to be paid for domestic players because obviously they're already settled in the league and they speak the language and whatnot. I think it's especially marked in England. I think Shaka's made an excellent point. It's just the reaction. It always falls on the manager in that situation. I think there's two other big points. I mean, and the guys we mentioned, Ben Chilwell and Reguilon. Chilwell is from Leicester. He just needs to drive an hour and 50 minutes away to London, where they speak the same language, same currency, same food, English manager. You're kind of insulated against some of the risks of something else cropping up. So I think that explains part of the premium. But I think the other thing is, if Chilwell moves to Chelsea and he's terrible and he just doesn't work out, history shows that if you're a talented English player and you come up short at a big club, they'll just sell you, maybe not recoup all the money, but recoup a big chunk of the money to another club. Usually a West Ham, back in the day was a Sunderland or a Stoke or a West Brom. We've seen this happen time and time again. It's much more difficult with foreign players. In fact, many times with foreign players, you have to sell them back to the country where they came from or put them somewhere else in Europe. If you're moving to a bigger club, a club like Chelsea, for example, you're going to be on the sort of wages that smaller clubs aren't going to be able to afford. So that's further going to depress your transfer value when the club try to sell you back. So there's a much bigger, I think, downside risk when it comes to foreign players, which explains the premium. Now, is Chilwell 4 times as good as Reguilon? I suspect probably not. But it goes some way to explaining it.
Yeah. This is definitely an extra time for specialty questions because we have Frank on the defence, Shaka on goalkeeper. Gab, guess what's coming your way? Financial fair play. Gab, how is it possible that Chelsea are bringing in so many players without breaching FFP? Werner, Ziyech, possibly Havertz, a new goalkeeper, new defenders, question mark. How are they doing it?
Well, so they haven't signed Havertz or the new defender or the new goalkeeper yet. So the answer is we simply don't know. I think one thing to bear in mind with financial fair play, and in fact the way things work accounting wise, is if you sign Timo Werner for 50 million and you give him a 5-year deal, you're only taking a 10 million hit on your books that year. So if I sign Werner for 50 million and I pay him 10 million a year, he's not making 10 million, he's making less than that, but on my books I have an outgoing or a cost of 15 million. Of 20 million. 10 million, which is 1/5 of the transfer fee, plus 10 million for his wages. Whereas when I sell somebody, let's say the same year, I sell Ross Barkley for 50 million, I get to book the entire 50 million profit straight away. So I think that's something to bear in mind. Chelsea have a very large squad. They have a ton of players who are out on loan, some very good players. Some of them they've already sold to raise money. They've done this in the past. They did it with Nathan Ake when he went to Bournemouth. Mario Pasalic, of course, is just signed for Atalanta. So Chelsea have always had this capacity to go and raise money. But you're right. I think personally the only way they sign Havertz at this stage is if they go and they sell some of the talent that they have there, whether it is Barkley or Loftus-Cheek or I don't know. But I mean, or Jorginho. They have to go and do things like that to balance the books.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.